the first time music felt sacred to me, and how it changed my life. So lots of musicians have challenges like pain and tension and stage fright and burnout and overactive inner critic, self-doubt, sort of a disconnection from the joy and love that brought you to the arts in the first place. And a lot of people try to treat these issues in kind of a piecemeal way. It doesn't really work, and so you end up feeling disconnected, and you don't really know why. So I know because I've had most, if not all, of these issues, and I've actually recovered from them. And so what I've discovered in that process is that all of them are different faces of the same underlying issue, which is disconnection from the sacred purpose of the arts. So today in this video, I'm going to share my own journey of discovering the sacred purpose of the arts, and I'm going to share a story from my childhood doing fiddle camp in the redwoods. I'm also going to share how you can go from separation, pain and strain to mastery and mystery, what I call Soulforce, and how connecting with the sacred purpose of the arts can relieve all of these issues, all these challenges, and also help unlock the magic behind your music. So my name is Joseph Arnold. I'm a violinist, Alexander technique teacher, award-winning author, and director of the Soulforce Arts Institute. And if you want, you can see links to all of that below in the description, my book and free guides and all that kind of thing. So here we go. So I grew up in a secular household, atheistic household, in a secular atheistic part of the world out in California. And, all that was fine, but looking back on it, I can see that the rationalist, sort of reductionist and materialist worldview really left some important things out. Of course, I couldn't have articulated that at the time. And, for me, music at the time was about becoming skilled, about becoming good at something, and about beauty and fun. And already at that time, I had some inklings of a sense of disconnection. I loved playing violin, but practicing often felt like a chore. And I didn't really realize that at the time, but looking back at videos and images of myself playing violin at the time, I was really tense, even for a little kid. And so I'll come back to sharing some of the ramifications of all that in just a moment. But my first experiences of the sacred with music actually came in fiddle camp. So I was fortunate enough to go to fiddle camp in the redwood forests of California. I just loved being there. These gigantic ancient trees, the shafts of sunlight coming through their incredibly tall branches, just the sense of awe being among these giants was so special, so enlivening. And we would not only learn fiddle tunes and work on our technique and do jam sessions and all that, but we'd also go for hikes in the woods, listening carefully to the birds and treading quietly and having fun looking at all the wildlife and learning about how these giant trees grew, and seeing some of the stumps left behind by loggers, stumps that were 30 feet across. It's incredible. And so I remember being there and being so full of life and love and learning these fiddle tunes. I still remember some of them. And there was just so much joy in my heart. And I thought at those moments, like, oh, this is what life is about. This is what music is about. And I think my takeaway which still touches me, the takeaway from those times was, if I can be surrounded by this much beauty, then I too must be beautiful. And there was something sacred in all of that. Again, I wouldn't have put it that way. I was just a kid. But looking back on it, that's definitely the way it felt. And it created a real impression in me that has stuck with me my whole life. But like I was saying, my surroundings didn't really support any kind of notion of the sacred. And over the years, I lost touch with that. I got this very effortful, strained kind of place, just in life in general, and especially with violin playing. And so when I went to music school, I really didn't have much memory of that. I didn't know how, and even if I did, I couldn't have brought the sacred into my music. Like none of my teachers were talking about that. None of my peers, none of the classes that I took talked about sacred music, except as, in the context of church music, which was something I was entirely uninterested in, having grown up an atheist. But the different faces of that separation from the sacred purpose of the music were all around me and in me. I had injuries. I could barely play violin anymore. My arms hurt so much. I was so tense. I was just using all willpower to practice and wasn't really connected. I was to some extent, but not all that connected to something larger than myself, the inspiration, the connection, the healing that my heart knows is possible through music. It was really just about learning the notes. It was like a factory for getting the notes right. And it really didn't work. I could barely play violin anymore. What kind of music school leaves people not able to play music, right? I had terrible stage fright, all this self-doubt. I got no help from my teachers, except for one, my jazz professor. It was really a great support, but I just felt so alone. And it's funny though, out of those experiences, out of all the pain and disconnection, and it was so intense that I had to search for something that would help. And so I, in terms of the pain in my arms, like tendinitis, I saw all kinds of therapists and doctors and massage and chiropractors and physical therapy, you name it, I did it. None of it worked. None of it worked. Over a year and a half later, I was still in pain. I didn't know what to do. And then I took this class on Alexander technique, and whoa, that opened up my eyes. For the first time, I noticed I was playing with all the strain and tension, and then it helped me play so much more freely. And not only did that relieve the pain that I was in, but it opened up my music in totally new ways, totally unexpected ways. So for those of you who don't know, Alexander technique is a method of learning how to use your body with less strain, less tension, more freedom, more fluidity, basically going from this to this while playing. But you can apply it to anything in life. And I remember experiences while becoming a teacher, for example, where our teacher would help one of the other students, a musician perhaps, release some tension while they were playing, and all of a sudden their music would go beyond just being merely nice to like awe-inspiring, luminous. Something totally new, a totally new quality would come out in their music, happened in me as well. And this kind of thing really caught my attention because it was so different than what I'd learned about creative expression in school and previously from other teachers. It had always seemed like it was an effort of will that was required. But here, it was the opposite. There was a letting go that happened, and all of a sudden, whoosh, everything you could ever want for in a musical experience. The heart-stopping beauty just right there underneath the surface. And so I experienced it myself. I experienced this while teaching Alexander technique, even to my little violin students. I saw the same thing over and over and over. And this is what I now call Soulforce. And so to me, the injuries, the tension, all the strain, going into that with curiosity, exploring it, trying to get to the real root cause of it all, I encountered something sacred. I encountered Soulforce. And that has been the sort of core creative insight of my life. So, I mean, after college, I taught this, and I developed a whole pedagogy for music and the arts around Soulforce. Like, how do we approach the arts in a way where our Soulforce is really centered and can really flourish? And so this is what led me to write my book. It's called Soulforce: How to Discover Your Artistic Purpose, Create More Freely, and Make Art That Matters. And this book is, it's a holistic arts pedagogy that centers Soulforce in how you practice, perform, teach, make a living, so that you can relieve all of these physical, emotional, mental, spiritual challenges that you might be having, and really make the art, make the music that you were meant for, that you were born for. To unlock that sense of magic and mystery and wonder that is your birthright. It's right there underneath the surface, I promise you. Even if you feel so disconnected from it, you still have it. Just need the right perspectives and methods, and that's what my book is all about. So here's what you can do. It's basically my story to date. This is what I'm bringing into the world. This is my life's mission, is to help artists, musicians specifically, but really all artists, reconnect with the sacred purpose of the arts. It's so important. And I think bigger picture, it's about more than simply relieving tension or stage fright or the inner critic, although those things are very important, and I highly encourage you to do that. It's also has to do with existential questions like, what's ours to do as artists in these turbulent times? Is there something for us to do? The world around us doesn't really seem to think so. This is why the schools cut arts funding first when there are budget shortfalls. The arts are considered nice, but essentially frivolous. And that contradicts the knowledge that our hearts hold about the true purpose of the arts, which is to bring us more to life, to inspire, heal, and connect, to put us in touch with something larger than our individual selves. This is the purpose of your music. This is what you were meant to embody and embrace through your music. So here's a step you can take to begin that process, or deepen that process if it's already happening for you. I call this looking for the gold in the dragon's lair. All the old stories about dragons. What is a dragon protecting? A big pile of gold, right? And you only get to that gold once you deal with the dragon. I won't say defeat the dragon, because really the dragon turns into the gold. Just like what I experienced with the pain that I had. That pain gave way to Soulforce. So I invite you to consider your challenges, your musical challenges, whatever they happen to be. And imagine for a moment that behind these challenges is in fact a positive intention. A positive intention. What if your pain, what if your stage fright, what if your self-doubt had a positive intention behind it? In fact, I'll guarantee that it does. So take that perspective and just wonder, just inkle for a while. What could be the positive intention behind this? If my pain had a voice, what would it say? If my stage fright was protecting something, what is that protection? What is it protecting? That kind of thing. Just do a little journaling around that. Maybe sit in a quiet place or under a tree and just wonder about it and see what could come up. This kind of inquiry really rewards some close attention, so be sure to turn off your devices, get rid of any distractions, and give yourself to this exploration. If my musical challenges had a positive intention, what would that be? And often it'll be something like protecting you from something, from bad experiences that you've had. And you might even discover something sacred underneath all of that. Like the love that brought you to music in the first place. It's a very vulnerable thing, that love. And in our society can get easily squashed. But it's probably the most important part of your musicality. I'm going to say this. It is the most important part of your musicality. So making some space for it is your number one task. If you wish to resolve the challenges that you have, this is where it happens. Okay, so that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed this and hope you found it useful. If so, please let me know. You can find my book on Amazon and all the online retailers. You can go to my website, soulforcearts.com/book, to check that out. I also have several free guides, PDF guides and other things available on my website. You can check those out. You'll find those easily. And yeah, so to get those guides, you can sign up for my newsletter. You can find all the info on my website. And if you do sign up for my newsletter, you'll get access to my blog posts and videos like this, a couple times a month. And I also want to share that I have a new PDF coming out soon, new guide that you might find useful if you're listening all the way to the end of this video. So I call this guide From Mastery to Mystery. A new creative paradigm for musicians who are ready to feel free, on fire, and fully alive. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, sign up for my newsletter and subscribe, etc. You'll find, I'll send that out soon. Okay, that's all for now. See you next time.